All right, in this video, I'm going to walk through my 2020 photo sales. I'll show you month by month, site by site, and then I'm going to compare 2019 to 2020 so you can see the best websites to sell your photos online in 2021. Now, in general, 2020 was a lower year for my photo sales through most of the year. So January through October, I saw fairly low sales, and they picked up in the end of the year around November and December. Now, if you exclude Envanto Elements, I made about $360 less in 2020 than I did in 2019. Now, the reason that I'm excluding Envanto Elements is that around mid-2019, they changed the way they paid contributors, and I went from making like $250 a month to like $2 a month. So it really isn't a fair comparison because it was because of that change that happened in 2019. So I'm just going to exclude Envanto Elements from the reviews I'm doing today. And if you've seen some of my past videos, I'll put a link down in the description to the one where I describe what happened with Envanto, but it was one of those sites that I was recommending previously. If you were in there in 2018, it was a great site, but in 2020, it's not that great of a site. And going into 2021, I don't see much of a change. Now, the reason that my photos didn't do well in 2020, I think is mainly because of COVID. I'll put some links down in the description so you can see the types of photos I take, but for the most part, I take photos while I'm on vacations. And because of that, a lot of my photos are used by travel companies. And the travel industry didn't have a great 2020 because of COVID. So I think that's one of the reasons why I saw lower sales. You know, if I was the type of photographer that like ran around and took photos of people with masks on when COVID hit, I would have seen some good sales on those types of photos. But I didn't do that. And that's because I do most of my photography on my vacations. It is more of a hobby that I make a bit of money on the side at. So take a look at my photos. That kind of explains a little bit about the types of photography that I'm doing and why I see them. You might have seen different results if you do a different type of photography. Also, to give you an idea about how much time I spend on photography, I uploaded about 145 photos in 2020 and about 50 videos. Most of those photos were taken on vacations. Some of them, I went out a couple of times near where I live at sunrise and took some photos or took some videos, and I uploaded those as well. So I wasn't really spending a lot of time, uploading thousands of photos. I just did 145, and a lot of the sales, that $2,700, came from photos that I had uploaded in years past. Now, that $2,700 really just covers my camera gear as well as a lot of the software I use for, editing my photos. Now let's go in and take a look at the actual sales by site. Now, this is a huge change from previous years, as well as a huge surprise that Fine Art America was my top site. I've always made some sales on Fine Art America, but it's never been a lot. And because of that, I have not uploaded very many photos since like 2016. So all those sales on Fine Art America were photos that I uploaded more than 4 years ago. Now, the only reason that I can explain this is I think, people bought more on Fine Art America in 2020 than they did in past years. Probably because of COVID, right? People maybe weren't traveling that much. So they wanted some travel photos for their house. I think a lot of people got stuck at home, so they decided to redecorate, and then they would buy more, art photos on Fine Art America. So I think that really explains it. And because of this, I think Fine Art America is one of the sites that I'm going to focus on a bit more in 2021. Because I haven't uploaded there in about 4 years, I've got hundreds of photos that I have on other sites that I don't have on Fine Art America. And because I'm seeing such good sales, I'm going to start uploading those photos to Fine Art America. Now, one of the things with that site is they don't have a great bulk uploader. You can only upload 5 photos at a time. So it will take me a while to do, but if I can make an extra $400 or $500 in 2020 from those sales, I think it's worthwhile. Right? One of the things to note, though, is that the types of photos that I take are kind of art-worthy. I guess one of the reasons I take them is I do print a lot of photos and put them in frames on my walls to remember my vacations, right? And there was a photo that I took of my kids on a beach this year that we did a huge print and we put it up in our room. So when I am taking my photos, one of the reasons I take them is to hang on my own walls. So I really, like it when other people go on Fine Art America and purchase them and decide they're good enough for their walls as well too. So that's one of the main sites that I will be focusing on in 2021 because it did so much better in 2020. Now, number 2 on the list was Shutterstock. This isn't really a huge surprise because Shutterstock is normally in the top 3. It is lower than previous years, but Shutterstock is one of the biggest microstock sites, so it typically does pretty well for me. Number 3 on the site isn't much of a surprise either, Pexels. At the end of 2019, I was seeing a lot more donations coming from the very few photos that I had up on Pexels. And because of that, in 2020, I decided to upload all my photos to Pexels. So those 145 photos that I did, I uploaded them to Shutterstock, but I also uploaded them to Pexels at the same time. And I made a fair number of donations. So I'll continue that into 2021. All right, so those are my top 3 sites in 2020. So I would recommend that you upload to those sites in 2021 if you don't upload them to them now and you're looking for new sites. But what I think is more interesting is going and looking at the trend for some of the other ones, the change from 2019 to 2020. So for that, I'm going to go look, and I've got a yearly comparison. Now, what you can see here is that Fine Art America was the best site again. It was the biggest increase overall, followed by Pexels. Now, next on the list is FreePic. FreePic, I didn't have an account on FreePic in 2019, so I just started that like mid-2020. So it actually looks pretty good that I made $100 on it. However, unfortunately, I made that $100 in like the first 2 months that I had my photos up on FreePic, and then after that, I've only been making a couple dollars a month. On top of that, they've made it very difficult to get payments, and it's a bit difficult to upload there. So although it is high on this list, it's not really one of the best sites that I see a lot of growth for 2021. Now, next on the list is Pond5. I don't think that Pond5 is probably growing overall, but it grew a bit for me just because I started doing some more video uploads. So Pond5, I've had my photos up on Pond5 for quite a while, but Pond5 isn't really well known for like still photos, and I don't get a lot of sales on there. But this year, one of the things I wanted to do was try to learn more video. And so I got out and I took more video clips, and I did a bit of processing on them and uploaded them to Pond5. So this is just me trying to learn how to do video better and put them up there. And Pond5, I just made a couple sales and it ended up being $67. So that's why it was a larger dump, probably more so because I started uploading videos there as opposed to, it being overall growth from past years' uploads. That being said, I am going to continue doing Pond5. I think if you do video clips, Pond5 is a really good spot to upload your videos to, and you should be uploading there in 2021. However, if you're just doing still photos, I wouldn't recommend uploading to Pond5 because I just don't think you're going to get that much sales, and it's really just not worth the effort. Now, the other thing we want to take a look at, not just the top of the list, but the bottom of the list. And this is a huge surprise. I did not expect that this was going to happen in 2020, especially as much as it did. But Adobe Stock was my largest decreasing site. So I made less on Adobe Stock more than any other site this year. And that's somewhat surprising because I think, if you follow the stock industry, one of the big things that happened in 2020 was Shutterstock changed the way that they do payouts mid-year, and a lot of people thought that was going to see a huge decrease in sales. And I did see a decrease in sales from Shutterstock, but not as much as Adobe. And Adobe had been doing fairly well. So I think this is COVID related, but Adobe was my biggest loser, I guess, of 2020, followed by Shutterstock. And if you look at all these ones on the bottom, it's a pretty clear trend that the traditional microstock sites all did worse for me in 2020 than they did in 2019. So the question becomes, is it still worthwhile to upload your photos to microstock sites in 2021? Personally, I am going to keep uploading my photos there. I use our Photoloo app to upload the photos to the microstock sites, and then the same photos that I upload to like Flickr and Instagram. So I'm going to be creating these photos anyways, and because I use Photoloo to upload them, it only takes me like a couple extra minutes each photo to upload them to these sites. And for the extra $650 that I make on Shutterstock and Adobe Stock, I think it's worth the 2 or 3 hours of work that I put in each year to kind of keep those sites relevant by uploading photos there. So I've gone through and talked about, which sites I'm going to be focusing on a little bit more based on my past sales. But one of the things I always do this time of year is decide whether I'm going to start uploading my photos to any new sites or any sites that I haven't been focusing on in the past. So one of those sites that I already talked about was Fine Art America. I'm going to start focusing on that again. I hadn't done it in a number of years, so I'll kind of get the rest of my photos up there. But I think because Fine Art America did so well, in 2020, I'm also going to start focusing on some of the other print on demand sites. Like, for example, Redbubble. I've got maybe a dozen photos on Redbubble that, I uploaded, 6-7 years ago, but I haven't really been keeping up with that account. So what I plan to do in 2021 is upload more and more photos to those sites and see if I can get similar results to what I've seen on Fine Art America. Right? Once you get your photos up on these sites, it just becomes passive income, right? So the photos that I upload this year, I still could be making art sales on them 4 years down the road, just like what happened with Fine Art America. So that's one of the things that I will be focusing on differently in 2021 versus 2020. Now, the other thing I think about this time of year is, are there any sites that I'm going to stop uploading to? Okay. And right now, my uploading workflow is pretty streamlined. I use Photoloo to upload to all my sites. So I, upload to Photoloo and then it pushes my photos to all of the different sites right away. So it's not a lot of extra effort to upload to all of these sites. The only site that I currently upload to that I can't do with Photoloo is Pexels. But it doesn't take me that long to upload each photo there manually. And it's worth it because it's one of my higher sites. So I'm not going to take away any sites right now, I don't think. FreePick is one of those sites where I might decide to, take out mid-year if it doesn't pick up. But I'm going to probably do it for at least the first half of the year to give it a chance and see, if the sales increase and go back to like what they were the first couple months. The other thing is, although I saw like a dramatic decrease in my sales on the microstock in 2020, I think a lot of that might be COVID related. And, as the vaccines roll out and people are able to travel more, I think I may see my sales go back up in 2021, as things go back to a bit of normal, as hopefully they will sometime later this year. So I really hope that you found this useful. If you're new to the channel, this is what it's about, selling your photos online. I talk about tips and tricks as well as how my sales are going. If you found this useful at all, make sure you give it a like, and best of luck selling your photos online.